The salt-laced wind off the Costa del Sol whipped through Naomi's silver-streaked hair as she stepped out of her rented Fiat, her heels clicking defiantly against the sun-baked pavement of the dealership lot. "Ma'am, with all due respect, that model's for folks who can actually afford the maintenance. Maybe stick to something simpler." The salesman's smirk lingered like cheap cologne, his words slicing deeper than the Spanish sun ever could. In that instant, as laughter rippled from the showroom windows, Naomi felt the weight of every sidelong glance, every whispered judgment, not just for her age but for the rainbow pin glinting on her lapel, a quiet badge of the life she'd built across oceans. She straightened her linen blouse, the fabric whispering against her skin like a lover's regret, and met his eyes with a gaze forged in boardrooms and broken hearts. "Simpler," she echoed, her American accent cutting through the Andalusian drawl like a knife through paella. "Darling, I've spent my life simplifying empires. Yours is about to get a crash course." Without another word, she turned on her heel, the door of her Fiat slamming like the final chord of a flamenco lament, leaving the lot in stunned silence as her taillights faded into the golden haze of Marbella's afternoon. Naomi Harper had come to Spain chasing ghosts, or maybe just the sun. At 58, she'd sold her tech startup in Silicon Valley for enough to buy a small country, but the proceeds felt hollow without Sarah, her wife of 30 years, whose ashes now mingled with the wildflowers of a Catalan hillside. Sarah had loved Spain. The riot of Bougainvillea, the late-night tapas under starlit skies, the unapologetic pulse of lives lived fiercely. "Go live for us," Sarah had whispered in her final days, her hand frail but fierce in Naomi's. So here Naomi was in Marbella, a glittering enclave on the Costa del Sol where expats and oligarchs danced around each other like matadors and bulls. She'd rented a villa overlooking the sea, whitewashed walls echoing with memories she couldn't quite drown in Rioja. The dealership fiasco was meant to be a whim, a test drive for a vintage Alfa Romeo to tool around the winding roads to Ronda. Instead, it unearthed something primal. The casual cruelty that had shadowed her life since coming out in the 80s, back when boardrooms still whispered about lifestyle choices, and family gatherings turned to ice. The salesman, Javier, with his gelled hair and Rolex that screamed rented ambition, had eyed her like a relic. "Elderly American tourist," he'd muttered to his colleague Isla, loud enough for the lot to hear. "Thinks she's Joan Collins because she flashed a black card. Bet she's one of those coastal elites playing house with her gal pal back home." Isla Ruiz, 25 and fresh out of automotive school in Madrid, had frozen behind the reception desk. Her dark waves framed a face that could shift from sun-kissed mischief to shadowed vulnerability in a heartbeat. Olive skin glowing under the fluorescence, brown eyes like polished chestnuts, full lips often curved in a half-smile that hid the ache of her own secrets. Born in a sleepy village near Seville, she'd fled the suffocating grip of tradition at 18. A father who preached machismo over morning coffee, a mother who baked empanadas while ignoring the bruises on Isla's spirit. Madrid had been a revelation. Queer bars pulsing with reggaeton, lovers who kissed without apology. But the job in Marbella dragged her back to the edge of that world, where euros trumped empathy. She'd laughed along with Javier that day, a nervous bark to blend in, but it lodged in her throat like a fishbone. As Naomi drove away, Isla watched from the window, her fingers twisting the hem of her uniform polo. There was something in that woman's stride, unyielding, electric, that stirred the embers of a longing Isla had buried under shift schedules and small-town shame. "Pobre señora," Isla murmured to herself, "poor lady," but the words felt inadequate, a band-aid on a bullet wound. By evening, Naomi was at her villa's terrace, the sea a restless indigo below, a glass of vermouth sweating in her hand. Her phone buzzed. A confirmation email from her lawyer in Barcelona. The dealership's parent company, Autolux Iberia, was a mid-tier chain teetering on acquisition rumors. With a few keystrokes and a wire transfer that could fund a village's fiesta for a decade, she'd made an offer they couldn't refuse. "Consider it poetic justice," she texted her brother back in San Francisco, the one who'd always called her the Velvet Hammer. But as the stars pricked the sky, justice felt less like triumph and more like an echo chamber, amplifying the loneliness Sarah's absence had carved into her bones. The next morning dawned with the ferocity of a Spanish summer. Azure skies unmarred, the air humming with cicadas and the distant crash of waves. Isla arrived at the dealership early, her Vespa sputtering to a halt in the employee lot, A thermos of café con leche clutched like a talisman. The buzz was already electric. Whispers of a hostile takeover, the boss pacing with his phone glued to his ear. Javier, ever the opportunist, was schmoozing clients with forced charm, his smirk replaced by a sheen of sweat. Then the black Mercedes pulled up, sleek as a predator, and Naomi stepped out, not in tourist casuals, but a crisp pantsuit the color of aged Merlot. Her hair swept into an elegant chignon that accentuated the fine lines of wisdom around her eyes. Flanked by two sharply dressed executives, one clutching a leather folio, she moved like she owned the ground beneath her Louboutins. Which Isla realized with a lurch she now did. "Ladies and gentlemen," Naomi announced from the showroom steps, her voice carrying the calm authority of someone who'd stared down venture capitalists at dawn. The staff gathered, a motley crew of grease-stained mechanics and wide-eyed admins, Javier front and center with a grin that faltered like a bad transmission. "As of 8:02 this morning, I am the new majority owner of Autolux Iberia. Effective immediately, this dealership, and all its operations, falls under my purview." Murmurs rippled like heat haze. Javier stepped forward, all bluster. "Senora Harper, I assure you, yesterday was just a misunderstanding." "Miss Harper," she corrected, her green eyes locking onto his with the precision of a laser sight. "And the only misunderstanding was assuming I wouldn't remember every word. Or every laugh." She nodded to her execs, who began distributing severance packets. Generous but final. "You've all got 30 minutes to clear your personal effects. HR will handle transitions. This isn't vengeance. It's velocity. We're rebranding, retraining, and rebuilding from the ground up. Those who mocked vulnerability, you're out. Those ready to learn empathy alongside engines? We'll talk." The lot erupted in chaos. Shouts slammed lockers, the metallic tang of fear. Isla stood rooted, her heart hammering as Naomi's gaze swept the crowd and paused on her. Those brown eyes, wide and pleading, flickered with something unspoken. Naomi's expression softened just a fraction like a crack in marble. But the moment passed. She turned to confer with her team, leaving Isla adrift in the whirlwind. By noon the dealership was a ghost town, luxury sedans gleaming mockingly under the relentless sun. Isla lingered on the curb, her duffel bag at her feet, tools, a faded photo of her abuelita, the rainbow bracelet she'd hidden in her locker since moving south. Fired. For what? A laugh she hadn't meant? The injustice burned, but beneath it simmered shame. Her own silence in the face of cruelty, the way she'd let fear dictate her tongue. She didn't see Naomi approach until the shadow fell across her sneakers. "You," Naomi said, not unkindly, tilting her head. "The one who didn't sneer." Isla looked up, throat dry as the Sirocco winds. Up close, Naomi was even more striking. Faint laugh lines etching stories around her mouth, a subtle jasmine perfume cutting through the exhaust fumes.
Y lo siento, Ms. Harper.
I should have said something. Yesterday. It was wrong. "Naomi," she replied, crouching to Isla's level, her knees protesting the motion with a grace born of yoga retreats and quiet grief. "And wrong doesn't begin to cover it. But apologies are cheap in Marbella. Actions? Those cost something." She glanced at the empty lot, then back, her voice dropping. "Why do you laugh?" Isla swallowed, the truth bubbling up like oversteeped tea. "Survival. Back home you don't rock the boat unless you want to drown. And me. I'm not exactly the poster child for fitting in." Her fingers brushed the bracelet, now loose on her wrist, the beads catching the light like tiny confessions. Naomi's eyes traced the colors, reds and blues woven with pride, and something shifted in her posture, a softening that Isla felt like a shared breath. "I know that dance," Naomi said softly. "Did it for decades in California, where rainbows were trendy but real love still got you sidelined. What's your name?" "Isla." Like the island, isolated but stubborn. A wry smile tugged at her lips, the first real one since dawn. "Isla," Naomi repeated, the syllables rolling off her tongue with an American lilt that made them sound like a secret. "Well, Isla, I've got a villa that's too quiet and a renovation project that needs hands that know their way around a wrench. Fancy earning your keep while we figure out what's next?" It was madness. Accepting a job from the woman who just upended her world. But as Isla slung her bag over her shoulder and followed Naomi to the Mercedes, the sea breeze carrying hints of pine and possibility. She felt the first stirrings of something dangerous. Hope. The drive to Naomi's villa wound through Marbella's labyrinth of luxury. Palm-fringed avenues giving way to cliffs where the Mediterranean hurled itself against ancient rock. Isla gripped the door handle, her knuckles whitening as the Alfa Romeo's engine purred beneath them. Silence stretched, thick as the bougainvillea draping the roadside, until Naomi broke it with a question that landed like a pebble in a still pond. "So, Isla Ruiz, what's a girl like you doing in a place like this? Not the dealership, I mean. The coast. It's all flash and no substance like a bad paella." Isla chuckled, the sound surprising her. "Escaping mostly. Seville's my roots. Flamenco in the streets. Family that loves you fierce but clips your wings if you fly too queer. Moved here for the job, thinking anonymity in the glitz. Turns out it's just louder judgment." She hesitated, then added, "You? Silicon Valley exile? Or just Sarah's ghost hunting?" Naomi's hands tightened on the wheel, the only tell. "Both. Sarah, my wife. She dragged me here on our second honeymoon. Taught me to love the chaos. Siestas that bleed into sunsets. Lovers who argue like it's foreplay. She passed last year. Cancer doesn't care about rainbows or resumes." The words hung, raw and unadorned, the sea a glittering witness below. Isla's chest ached, a mirror to her own fractures.
Lo siento mucho.
I get it. Lost my first love to a car crash at 19. Village funeral, half condolences, half God's will for sinners. Broke me open. The confession slipped out unbidden, but Naomi's nod, small knowing, made it feel like shared ground, not quicksand. The villa emerged like a mirage. Terracotta roofs cascading down a hillside, infinity pool merging with the horizon, olive groves whispering in the breeze. Inside, it was a study in restrained elegance, mid-century modern furniture shipped from Sausalito, walls lined with Sarah's abstracts, bold strokes of cerulean and crimson evoking Andalusian sunsets. Naomi led Isla to a guest casita overlooking the cove, its balcony strung with fairy lights that danced like fireflies at dusk. "Tools are in the shed," Naomi said, gesturing vaguely. "Start with the pool pump. It's been groaning like a heartbroken bull. Pays daily cash. No strings unless you want 'em." Isla unpacked in a haze, her reflection in the casita's mirror showing a woman on the cusp. Tank top clinging to sun-freckled shoulders, jeans faded from too many repairs. That night, as cicadas chorused, she found Naomi on the main terrace, a bottle of Manzanilla sherry between them, the sea a black velvet expanse. They talked until the stars wheeled overhead, Naomi spinning tales of startup wars, the 90s dot-com bubble bursting like a bad date. Isla recounting Seville's underground scene, where drag queens lip-synced to Rosalia under railway arches. Laughter came easy, a balm against the day's wreckage, but undercurrents pulled. Stolen glances over glass rims, the brush of fingers passing the cheese board. When Isla admitted her bracelet was from a Madrid Pride March, Naomi's smile was a sunrise, warm, unguarded. "You're brave," Naomi said, her voice husky from the sherry. "Wearing it where it counts." "Or foolish," Isla countered, but her pulse betrayed her, a flamenco rhythm in her veins. By week's end, the villa hummed with progress. Pool crystal clear, irrigation lines rerouted like veins to a heart. Isla's hands bore the evidence, calluses blooming anew, but so did her heart, tentative shoots pushing through cracked soil. Naomi cooked one night, a Californian twist on gazpacho. Avocado swirled with smoked paprika, served on the terrace as thunder rumbled distant over Gibraltar. Rain came sudden and biblical, sheeting the world in silver, driving them inside to the living room's leather sectional. Huddled under a throw blanket scented with lavender, they watched the storm through floor-to-ceiling windows. Naomi's head found Isla's shoulder, a weight both anchor and spark. "I haven't felt this alive since Sarah," she whispered, vulnerability cracking her voice like lightning. Isla turned, their faces inches apart, breaths mingling with the petrichor. "Me neither. But is this real? Or just the rain washing away the wreckage?" Naomi's hand cupped Isla's cheek, thumb tracing the curve of her jaw, gentle, reverent. Their lips met in the thunder's roar. A kiss born of salt and longing, slow as the sea's tide. It deepened, hands exploring with the caution of explorers charting unclaimed shores, fingers threading hair, palms pressing against racing hearts. No rush, no conquest, just the quiet unraveling of guards long held. They parted breathless, foreheads touching. Real, Naomi affirmed. As real as this storm. But Marbella's glamour hid thorns. Whispers reached the villa by mid-month. Javier, nursing grudges over cervezas at beachside chiringuitos, spinning tales of the crazy American dyke who'd stolen his livelihood. Ruined us all for her little mechanic fling. He'd slur, eyes narrowing on Isla's name, dropped carelessly in pillow talk she'd regretted sharing with a loose-lipped coworker. Isla heard it first at the mercado, haggling for figs. An old client's pitying glance, a murmured cuidado con la viuderica, tres problemas. Be careful with the rich widow, she brings trouble. Doubt crept in like fog off the straight, mingling with old fears. Was she just a rebound? A youthful salve for Naomi's grief? Or worse, pity wrapped in passion? The confrontation brewed over a quiet dinner. Paella simmering with saffron and secrets, candlelight flickering on Naomi's face. Isla set her fork down, the clink a gunshot in the hush. Javier's talking. About us. Says I'm your distraction. That you'll tire of the village girl, once the novelty fades. Naomi's fork paused midair, color draining like wine from a tipped glass. And you believe him? After everything. Not believe, fear. Isla's voice cracked, eyes glistening. I've been the side story before. The one they laugh at, discard. What if this is just your way of rewriting the dealership? Proving power over pain? The words landed like shrapnel. Naomi rose, chair scraping tile, her silhouette stark against the window's night. Power? Isla, I've bought companies to bury hurts, yes. But you woke something I thought died with Sarah. This isn't a transaction. It's terror. Loving again, when loss taught me it's safer not to. Thunder clapped outside. Not the storm's echo, but their own. Isla stood, closing the distance, hands framing Naomi's face. Then teach me trust. No more hiding. They collided in a kiss fiercer than before. Apologies woven into every touch, the paella forgotten as they tumbled toward forgiveness. In the casita that night under rain-lashed shutters, they mapped each other with whispers and wonder. Bodies entwined in a dance of rediscovery, tender and true, the world's judgments dissolving in the downpour. Yet betrayal's shadow lingered. Unbeknownst to Isla, Javier's venom had roots deeper than envy. A leaked email chain from the takeover, Naomi's execs uncovering his embezzlement schemes from service fees. He'd twisted it. Anonymous tips to local tabloids painting Naomi as a corporate raider preying on vulnerable locals, with Isla as unwitting pawn. The stories hit online forums by dawn, viral in Marbella's expat circles. American widow wrecks lives for love. Naomi woke to her phone's relentless buzz. Headlines screaming from Barcelona to Bilbao. Scandal at Autolux. New owner's revenge romance? Photos, grainy but damning, of their terrace kiss, pilfered by a drone-happy neighbor. Rage boiled, but beneath it fear. Exposure on this scale could unravel her fragile peace, drag Sarah's memory through tabloid mud. She confronted Isla at breakfast, tablet thrust forward like evidence in a trial. Did you know? About the leaks. Isla's face crumpled, denial dying on her lips. Javier cornered me yesterday, begged me to spy, feed him dirt for a lawsuit. I told him to go to hell. But I didn't tell you. Thought I could handle it. Protect us. Protect. Naomi's laugh was bitter, a shard of glass. By keeping secrets. That's not love, Isla, it's sabotage. The argument escalated, words flung like plates in a telenovela. Accusations of naivety, cries of control. Isla stormed out, Vespa roaring down the hill toward town, tears blurring the coastal road. Naomi collapsed onto the terrace, sherry bottle her only companion, the sea mocking her with its endless churn. Days blurred into a haze. Isla crashed with a cousin in Fuengirola, wrenching at a garage for scraps, her phone silent save for Javier's taunting texts. Told you she'd drop you like a hot tamale. Pride warred with panic. Every night she replayed their fight, the hurt in Naomi's eyes a knife twist. Naomi, meanwhile, lawyered up. Suits filed against the rags. Javier's schemes exposed in court filings that painted him the villain. But victory tasted like ash. The villa echoed emptier than before, Sarah's paintings staring down like silent judges. In a weak moment, she drove to the old dealership site, now rebranded Harper Motors, a gleaming hub training staff in ethics alongside EVs. But without Isla's laughter in the sheds, it felt like another hollow conquest. Reconciliation came circuitous, via an unlikely messenger. Isla's abuelita, a wiry septuagenarian with a penchant for meddling and merengue. Visiting from Seville, she'd heard the gossip via family vines thicker than grape arbors. "Me Nina," she scolded over phone. "Love isn't alone, it doesn't accrue interest on fears." Spurred, Isla penned a letter, old school on linen paper scented with orange blossom. "No please, just truths. I was scared of your world swallowing mine. But losing you? That's the real wreckage. Come to the feria in town. Dance with me under the lights if you'll have me." The Feria de San Bernabe exploded Marbella in color. Casetas throbbing with Belarius, Azulejo stalls hawking churros and charm bracelets. The air electric with anticipation. Naomi arrived as dusk purpled the sky. Her simple sundress a flag of truce, heart pounding like a bass drum. She spotted Isla amid the crowd. Hair loose, a floral skirt swirling as she clapped to the rhythm, brown eyes scanning desperately. They met at the fairground's edge, where lanterns swung like fallen stars. "You came," Isla breathed, voice lost in the music. "Always," Naomi replied, pulling her into the fray. They danced, awkward at first, Naomi's steps Californian stiff against Isla's fluid grace. But soon it flowed, bodies sinking to the guitar's wail, hands linked like lifelines. Under the lights with the crowd a joyful blur, they kissed again. Public, unashamed, a declaration amid the chaos. But drama's not done with lovers lightly. As the night peaked, Javier materialized, drunk, defiant, flanked by tabloid hacks with cameras flashing like paparazzi vultures. "Mira la traidora," he bellowed, lunging at Isla with slurred fury. "You sold us out for her bed." The crowd parted, gasps rippling. Naomi stepped forward, shield-like, but Isla held her ground.
Basta, Javier.
"Your greed, not my love, bought your fall." Security, Naomi's hires trained sharp, hauled him away, but not before his parting shot. A shoved phone screen, anonymous messages from Isla's cousin, spilling villa intimacies for a quick euro. Betrayal's second strike. Family for coin. Isla's face ashen, she turned to Naomi. "I didn't." She wouldn't. "I know," Naomi said, voice steady amid the storm. "But we end this now." Dawn broke over the feria's aftermath like a hangover. Confetti-strewn plazas, the faint echo of castanets fading into the gulls' cries. Naomi and Isla retreated to a quiet chiringuito on the beach, toes buried in cool sand, espressos steaming against the chill. The tabloids had feasted overnight. Lesbian love scandal rocks Marbella elite. But Naomi's lawyers were sharks in bespoke suits, injunctions flying faster than the morning's first ferries. "We can't run from this," Isla said. Her voice raw from unshed tears, bracelet dangling loose on her wrist like a broken promise. "My cousin Dios for 50 euros? Blood's supposed to mean something." Naomi squeezed her hand, the gesture a lifeline across the driftwood table. "It does. But sometimes it's the first to betray, because it knows where the knives hide best. My brother did the same after Sarah. Likhtar will fight to the press for a headline. Family's not fate, Isla. It's choice." The words settled like sea foam, gentle but insistent. They spent the day walking the promenade. Past yachts bobbing like overfed egrets, street artists sketching caricatures of tourists in sombreros. Conversation meandered, from Naomi's first pride in '79, dodging cops in Castro, to Isla's clandestine kisses behind Seville's cathedral, the bells tolling forgiveness neither sought. Laughter crept in, tentative, then full-throated, as they fed churros to stray cats and dodged offers of genuine Rolexes from vendors with eyes like foxes. By afternoon resolve hardened. Naomi called her execs. Double down on the rebrand. Community outreach, scholarships for queer youth in vocational trades, partnerships with local pride orgs. Turn the scandal into a statement. Isla meanwhile confronted her cousin over a tense cafe call. "You're dead to me. But here's a check. Get clean or get gone." It wasn't absolution, but it was agency, a severing that freed rather than festered. Javier's reckoning came swift. Arrested that evening for fraud, his tabloid allies scattering like roaches at dawn. Court in Malaga painted him the architect of his own ruin, skimming thousands, fueling vendettas with vodka-fueled lies. As cuffs clicked, his glare fixed on Isla through the gallery. Not hate but hollow defeat. You win, he mouthed, but Isla turned away, Naomi's arm a steady anchor at her side. The high tide of crisis crested, but drama's waves lap eternal. Whispers persisted in Marbella's salons. That American cold as her dollars. Naomi felt the chill in board calls from Barcelona. Investors hedging bets on her personal distractions. One night, over a balcony dinner of grilled sardines and aioli, doubt resurfaced like a riptide. What if they're right? Naomi mused, wine glass swirling crimson. I'm 58, Isla. You've got oceans ahead. Kids maybe, or a life unscarred by loss. I come with baggage. Grief that sneaks up like sirocco's, a heart that's mended but fragile. Isla set her plate aside, crawling across the rug to kneel before Naomi's chair. Hands on knees like a supplicant, or a lover claiming ground. Baggage? Carino, that's ballast. Keeps us steady in the storm. I don't want unscarred, I want you. Scars and stories, the whole fierce map. She kissed Naomi's palm, then wrist, trailing up to collarbone. Each press a vow. We're not a fling. We're a force. Their lovemaking that night was a reclamation. Slow, sacred bodies speaking what words fumbled. Moonlight slanted through shutters, gilding skin in silver. Naomi's curves softened by time. Isla's lithe strength a counterpoint. Whispers wove with gasps. Stay. Always. The sea's rhythm their chorus. No frenzy, just fusion. A deepening of souls tender as the dawn. Weeks folded into months, the villa a cocoon of creation. Harper Motors thrived. Diverse hires, including queer mechanics from Gibraltar's underbelly. Pop-up clinics teaching financial literacy to locals wary of Yankee takeovers. Naomi mentored Isla through online courses. Business basics laced with empathy modules. While Isla taught her the guitar, chord strumming ballads of lost lovers and found homes. Yet conflict simmered in subtler forms. A letter from San Francisco. Naomi's brother, penitent, inviting her to a family wedding. Bring your friend. It read, the ellipsis a chasm. Old wounds reopened, Sarah's exclusion from Harper holidays, the aunt who'd called their union a phase. Naomi paced the terrace, Isla watching from the shadows. Go, Isla urged, though it twisted her gut. Show them we're not ghosts to fear. The wedding was a Bay Area blur. Vineyard vines heavy with grapes, Naomi in emerald silk that matched her eyes, Isla beside her in a linen suit, bracelet bold on her wrist. Stares lingered, curious, cool, but Naomi's brother embraced them both, toasts slurring into sincerity. To family chosen and mended. Dances followed. Awkward two-steps with cousins, then a slow sway under string lights, Isla's head on Naomi's shoulder. Sí.
Isla murmured.
Force. Back in Spain, autumn gilded the groves, olives swelling like secrets. But by Kitsch's whisper came unbidden. A routine check in Malaga, Naomi's doctor frowning at scans. Spot on the lung, early, treatable. But we caught it wandering. Cancer. The word echoed Sarah's final siege, a specter in white coat drag. Naomi broke the news over café con leche, voice steady but eyes storms. Irony's a bitch. Just when I learned to live. Isla's world tilted but she anchored. Then we fight. Together.
No solo battles.
The months blurred into battle. Infusions in Barcelona clinics, Naomi's hair shedding like autumn leaves, Isla at her side. Holding basins, braiding what remained, fierce as a civilian storm. Drama peaked in a midnight vigil. Fever raging, Naomi delirious, clutching Isla's hand. Don't let me go, gentle, she gasped. Make it loud like us. Isla sang then. Flamenco raw, voice cracking on verses of enduring love. Until dawn pinked the hospital window. Remission came grudging, scans clear as a winter sea. But the scare etched deeper lines. A reminder of fragility's gift. Presence. Spring bloomed triumphant. Harper Motors expanded. A satellite in Seville, scholarships named for Sarah. Naomi and Isla wed in a civil ceremony on the villa terrace. Vows exchanged under olive boughs. Abuelita toasting with tears and tequila. The sea applauding with waves. No fanfare, just family forged. Queer kin from Madrid. Naomi's brother via video. Locals who traded whispers for welcomes. They honeymooned in Ronda. Cliffside drives, picnics amid cork oaks. Nights tangled in posada sheets. To velocity. Naomi toasted at a roadside venta, glasses clinking. To us, Isla replied, kiss sealing the pact. In Marbella's glow they built. A life of quiet revolutions, mentoring at pride centers, restoring vintage cars as art, loving with the depth of those who'd stared down shadows. The dealership's old lot, now a community hub, bore a plaque. Empathy drives us forward. Javier, reformed in a halfway house, sent a letter once. Apology scrawled in shaky script. Forgiveness? Not yet. But understanding bloomed, human and hard one. Naomi, silver hair crowning her like a queen's, often watched Isla from the terrace. Wrench in hand, laughter lifting toward the sun. Who knew mockery could birth this? She'd muse. Isla, ever the island, would rise, dust-kissed and defiant, pulling her into a dance. Not birth. Awakening. And darling, we're just getting started.